So now you're in South Utica. I'm sure there's a difference, and this is one of the things that you want to talk about is the road conditions versus where you lived before.
Yeah, you know, coming from a place like New Hartford, you know, the administration there did a great job at, you know, road resurfacing and even services like trash pickup. And that's two of the major issues that I've ran into going door to door in South Utica, and of course now being a resident of South Utica, or Utica in general, is people are frustrated with the condition of the roads. You know, talking with some of the former council members and talking about the allocation through their charter of $2 million per year to resurface roads, it would take them 150 years to catch up to where they need to be to pave every street in the city of Utica. So that's pretty alarming. You know, in South Utica, your streets like Sunnyside Drive or Douglas Crescent or Valentine Bray, where, you know, you've got a lot of hard-working people, unfortunately their streets are neglected. And even with that $2 million, some of that funds is CDBG money. So some of that paving has to occur in some of your, you know, more poverty-stricken areas. That's why you see paving going on Rutgers Street and Park Place, or Park Ave rather, and, you know, some of these different areas, and you wonder why South Utica is being neglected. Well, some of that funds is CDBG money. But $2 million just isn't going to get the job done. So what do? We have to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. I think there needs to be two things: more money allocation and more oversight. I think that you know, it's the obligation of not only the common council people who serve their respective districts, but also of even someone like myself who's specific to South Utica, to voice the concerns of the constituency, to say, you know, we've got streets that need to be done, and come up with a comprehensive plan to get it done. You know, here in Oneida County, we have DPW services that the city of Utica residents really don't reap any benefits from that, because we don't have the county roads that they have in New Hartford or Camden, Boonville, Ava, and so on and so forth. So a couple of years ago, they instituted the MVCC chargeback program, which essentially charged areas in which students came from a greater amount for the taxation for that area. So, you know, one of the things I'm going to propose is a DPW chargeback program where the city of Utica would be entitled to receive more money because we don't benefit from the services of road resurfacing and things like that. And I looked at the budget the other day, and about $10 million is allocated towards what they call infrastructure within the county, which means you know, bridges, roads, and things like that, maintenance of the equipment that they use. So I would think, based on that formulation or the population that's represented and where the taxes come from, that the city of Utica should be entitled to probably somewhere around $3 million in chargeback to be used in an effort to resurface the streets. Will that make a big dent? I think it will.
Well, I was going to say, it doubles the money that they have set aside.
Yes.
Right? It would go from 2 to 5. But there's got to be a legal question here, right? Whether the city can even request that if the county could provide it?
Well, I don't think it's a legal question. I think it just becomes something that becomes part of the budget. And, you know, as a legislator or the county executive can propose that. We also have that, don't forget, that whirlwind of money coming in from the Oneida Indian Nation. Approximately $15 million a year, 12.5 from the slot revenue, as well as the 2.5 from the settlement of back taxes. So at what point do we start to look at not using that money for grants to nonprofits, but to repair our infrastructure? And if I'm the county executive or if I'm a county legislator, I'm looking at that money saying infrastructure, and everybody knows it is a crumbling issue, is a crippling issue across this country, let alone right here in the Mohawk Valley. So when do we start to address our infrastructure? Everything from stormwater and stormwater drainage to roads, sidewalks, and bridges, and use that money from the Oneida Indian Nation to get our largest epicenter, you know, like the city of Utica, get them the funds that they need to do resurfacing and take care of some of the other issues, drainage issues.
When I said legal, I should have said a question in the charter. I'm just wondering, does that open a can of worms where, like, now Rome will ask for money and Whitesboro and Whitestown?
Oh, you're always going to be up against that. One of the things that is always one of the greatest things about the city of Utica is the population, and we had a population increase in the last census. So we're 62,000 people strong. You know, so that represents a large majority of the population of the county of Oneida. So at what point does the city of Utica reap the benefits of having that population? At what point do they get their fair share? And, you know, that's where I'm going to fight for the people of Utica to say that Uticans have not gotten their fair share. You know, there's a lot of these county programs that we have, or budgetary items that are specific to Oneida County, but Uticans never reap the benefits of it. So at what point do we sit down and have that conversation to say, okay, where is the formula to, you know, disperse that evenly? And, you know, that's been an ongoing issue with the sales tax formula, is based on the population of the city of Utica and where sales tax derives from, and the evenly distribution of it. So I think the same thing has to be said about the allocation of funds, especially when it comes to that $15 million from the Oneida Indian Nation, and certainly, again, some of those programs, some of those departments that we have in the county government that the city of Utica residents just don't get to enjoy the benefits of.
So you mentioned the money coming in from the Oneida Nation. I believe you were part of the minority group that did not support that plan going forward. I want to get your thoughts on that, where we are today, and then also the county executive has put together a plan for how to use that money, arts, libraries. There is a list that he's kind of put out there, what he wants to use that money to support. I want to get your thoughts on that as well. But going back to the plan, the agreement between the county and the nation, did you support it, and what do you think about it today?
Well, I didn't support it, and one of the reasons is because of what we're seeing now. It opened up the floodgates for things like mass retail and the opening of their outlet stores, and what kind of impact that's going to have on stores here in Oneida County. If a store like Macy's in New Hartford, so to speak, you know, if their sales drop even 10%, the loss of sales tax revenue is going to be huge. It's going to have a huge impact on our community, and that's just one store. You know, your stores like JCPenney's, you know, in Rome could feel a larger impact of, you know, 15 to 20% in lost sales. And so again, every time you lose sales from a company that remits sales tax, you lose the sales tax. So at what point does that catch up? I think that it could have a great impact, and that was one of the reasons, was the unknowns. It's those type of issues that would arise that we didn't have answers for, and those were questions that were unanswered when they were asked. So it's great to have that kind of revenue source coming in, because it's kind of a band-aid to fix things now. But what happens when the impact is so great that you're losing $15 or $20 million in sales tax on the other end, or $15 to $20 million in lost revenues, where people don't have jobs, and where sales tax is not prevalent, and, you know, where companies can't survive locally, and you have you know, again, it becomes just a domino effect of lost productivity and lost revenue. So those are, I think you're going to see more of that from that aspect, and I'm just hoping that, you know, the lines of communication are still open, and that we can try to stifle some growth that isn't conducive towards, remitting that sales tax, and hopefully you know, keeping our jobs and our people here. What
do you think of County Executive Tony Picenti's plan to use that money? I know part of it actually is for infrastructure, part of it is for arts. You mentioned not-for-profits earlier. What do you think of how the money is projected to be used?
Well, honestly, I think that more of that money should go towards infrastructure. You know, when you look at that plan to use it towards arts and things like that end up getting allocated to nonprofit organizations, I think that you know, it doesn't show good faith on the part of his administration to address the crumbling infrastructure. I think if you allocated something like $10 million of the $15 million towards infrastructure, it shows in good faith that we're moving into the direction that the taxpayers are really, you know, are more sympathetic towards. The people here of Oneida County, or people just in general, you know, they're looking for services when it comes to paying taxes. I had a great conversation last night at one of the doors I went to, and the gentleman said, you know, we don't mind paying taxes. It's just what services do we get for it? And when they start taking services away, like road resurfacing and trash pickup and things like that, at what point does that, you know, become, you know, such a great issue that we can't turn a blind eye anymore to where money's allocated? And again, allocating money to nonprofit organizations from what is supposed to be an agreement reached for back tax settlement, in my mind, is not the correct way to allocate that money. It should go directly back to the people that it services, which are the taxpayers here of Oneida County, and evenly distributed.
All right. Just before we let you go, just because it was in the news this week, the head of the county minority, the minority leader, Frank Tallarino arrested this week, facing charges. Do you have a stand on whether he should remain in his position, stand down? What are your thoughts on this?
You know, one of the issues is I'm not there, and I'm certainly not part of the investigation that they stated has been ongoing for several months now. I find it ironic that it comes out 2 weeks before a primary election, but that's just politics in general. The question really is going to be, you know, what is the evidence surrounding it? But the charges, again, as it's been stated through the media, are not felony charges, so you kind of have to let it play throughout. You know, let it play out its process, see what comes of it. You know, and I worked with Frank, and you know, I felt that his leadership was strong on the county board. He was very progressive in nature and very fiscally responsible. So the question now comes to, what are those charges, and will he be vindicated? And if he is vindicated, I think that he should continue to hold his position, because I think out of watching county government and county politics for the last several years, I haven't seen anybody more vocal about being fiscally conservative as somebody like Frank, or even myself when I was on the board. So at this point, I think it'd be premature to make any stance on it, other than to say let it play out and see what happens.
All right. Dave Gordon, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.